proud. There once was a time I believed in. Only God was in front of me. Clouds of secrets. One move and
This is a special presentation from WBRM Radio in Boston on the Boston Red Network. John Conyers leaves the ship of state. John Conyers, the longest-serving member of the House of Representatives, 53 years, a man that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King campaigned on his behalf in the 60s. John Conyers has been in the House of Representatives over 50 years. He has been on the Judiciary Committee because he understood the importance of being on the Judiciary Committee. He is the ranking member, or was, until today. His resignation is effective immediately, and the governor of Michigan, Snyder, former Gateway computer type, when Gateway made a computer. I'm assuming they're out of business now, or should be. But nonetheless, they will have a special election there. He's recommended his son, John Conyers III, and there's evidently a nephew and everyone but Mom's Mabley running for the seat. The seat itself is an interesting seat. Michigan will lose a congressional seat. Thus, that seat will probably disappear in 2 years. In other words, after the next term, it will, when the census is redone in 2020, there will not be that particular seat in Congress. This is a result of obviously shortcomings in the state of Michigan. And the Democratic Party there has effectively conceded its political wherewithal in that particular state. So we have a situation there that Michigan, an industrial state, the state that Barack Obama saved their automobile industry, the industry there in Michigan. It's now a right-to-work state. The Republicans have the legislature and the governmental authorities in Michigan. We've seen their handiwork in Flint, Michigan, the deliberate poisoning of people in Flint, a working-class, majority African-American city there that at one time was an industrial titan. Michael Moore, the filmmaker, his people, he's from Flint, Michigan. But Flint, Michigan is no longer Flint, Michigan anymore. It has changed to, just as John Conyers goes out, amongst what they call sexual harassment claims that were shrouded in racism, no doubt about it. But what it also points out, the limitations of so-called normative politics in the vernacular. The people of John Conyers' district that he represented for 53 years understand that there is a limit to what can be done in the Congress, and a new person replacing John Conyers will have absolutely no seniority in the House. Thus, that seat will just be a placeholder seat for the remainder of its viability in the legislative process. It is indeed a very, very sad day. From the Detroit Free Press, we'll round up a bit of this, as they say, facing multiple chorus of voices demanding he step down because of sexual harassment claims. John Conyers retired from the seat he had held for more than 5 decades. A sweeping, crushing fall from grace of a civil rights icon and longest-serving active member of Congress. Finalizing plans to retire the same day as the announcement, Conyers added he endorsed his son, John Conyers, the third, to replace him in Congress. There's also an Ian, a state senator named Ian Conyers, but said that he would be in the special election. We'll have the live feed from the Mildred Gaddis show. That's at WPZR FM 102.7 in Detroit. Good morning. He did not describe his move as a resignation, but said the decision was immediate, suggesting the difference may be little. His attorney, Arnold Reed, also confirmed that Conyers was leaving the seat as of Tuesday. My legacy can't be compromised or diminished in any way by what we are doing now. This too shall pass. My legacy will continue through my children, Conyers told Gaddis. I'm retiring today and want everyone to know how much I appreciate the incredible undiminished support I've received across the years from my supporters, not only from my district but across the country. No doubt about that. He championed justice for all people, reparations in particular. Conyers said that about the accusations against him, he said they are not accurate, they are not true, and there's something I can't explain where they came from. In Washington, there was initially some confusion over the action. Shirley Jackson Lee, she is from Texas, read a statement on his behalf on the floor of the House about 11 a.m. saying he'd notified the Speaker, Ryan, and the Democratic leader, Pelosi, and Gateway Snyder, the governor of Michigan, of his decision. And in it, he said, with the accusations against me, I recognize that due process will be denied me. And that's very important there. He's not afforded due process of law. And John Conyers Jr. is a very good lawyer, and he understands what has happened here. It's a travesty. The situation was sorted out. Ryan and Pelosi's office had received a letter from Representative Conyers saying he had made the decision to retire effectively today. A spokesman from Ryan's office said the Speaker has received a copy of a signed letter by the congressman to the governor finalizing his departure. We posted up here. Gateway Snyder, spokesman for him, said, yeah, he received a letter, and John Conyers, 88 years old, made his decision to quit 2 weeks after an article in something called BuzzFeed, a secret settlement of $27,000 with a former staffer. She made her appearance on CNN and various other people out of his taxpayer-supported office funds. Now, John Conyers made very clear today that there's been millions of dollars spent out of that sort of thing to settle obligations, and they should be made public. So many people in the past, some of them probably not around anymore, will read about that. Within days, several women have come forward with accusations, that's all they are, who, despite his expressed denials that arrest anyone, the House leadership and members of his own party abandoned him. That's to be expected. In the Senate, Senator Franklin of Minnesota is facing a similar situation, but he is receiving due process and investigation of what is termed the secretive Senate Ethics Committee, a different kind of setup there. Jerome Nadler of New York, who will replace him as acting ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, only a week ago, replaced him, in the wake of the allegations. Representative Conyers had stepped down as a ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. Representative Nadler said, I'm saddened that his service to our nation has to end under these circumstances. John has been a champion for justice his entire life. There is no doubt these allegations have taken a tremendous toll on him personally. Nadler said, and with that, there can be no toleration for behavior that subjects women to the kind of conduct that has been alleged, but neither reaction was mute. But full reaction was mute, despite advance word that he might be leaving. Democrats in Congress largely stayed silent throughout the day. There's no reason to say anything. They had already said it. Had served in the Congress for more than 5 decades, 50 years. But no matter how great the legacy is, it's not a license to harass or discriminate. As according to the Speaker of the leader, Pelosi, whom people have called for also to resign. In addition to Marion Brown, she was someone that worked for him, worked in his office actually for 11 years. 6 other women claimed they had experienced or saw him touch or rub women in his office. So more have come out. There's a party there. Amongst other things, one filed a lawsuit against him earlier this year and then withdrew it. A lawyer in Washington there, Mary Sloan, told the Free Press last month that Conyers had verbally mistreated her. She was tasked with babysitting his children, and on one occasion showed up at the office. This is one of the more kind of hilarious things with her in his office in his underwear, though he didn't consider it, she didn't consider it sexual harassment. As late as Wednesday morning, there were reports that Conyers would fight on choosing to remain in office until the end of his current term and retire in early 2019. Those reports obviously didn't turn out. Old Lisa Bloom, who is an ambulance chaser at heart, said she would continue to push for full ethics committee hearing. There won't be one. Marion Brown, so that Marion Brown's importance and disturbing story, her collaborating witnesses, and the several other may be heard. But anyway, the Ethics Committee no longer has any jurisdiction over John Conyers Jr. because he has, as they say, left the House. Literally left the House. So that is the end of that particular story. He helped create the Congressional Black Caucus, and it moves on. And this is the Free Press where he showed up for a meeting in his underwear. Now this is Mary Sloan, well-known Washington attorney, who for 3 years in the 90s worked as a Democratic counsel on the House Judiciary Committee, where Conyers remained the ranking member, told the Free Press that Conyers consistently berated her, screaming at her, and fired her, then rehired her several times. Oh, well. She was still working. And she's working today, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. She was executive director there, and later opened Trump Strategic Public Affairs, a firm specializing in crisis response. I said Trump. Strategic, anyway. Strategy, It made me increasingly anxious and depressed about going to work every day, and there was no way to fix it. There was no mechanism that I could use, no person that I could go to. She said she approached the leader at the time, Dick Gephardt. That's been a long way back. Gephardt evidently wasn't able to do anything about it. He's now a lobbyist. Said that on occasion she had described to someone as mentally unstable for making, had been described as mentally unstable for making those arguments. Conyers, 88, has denied, of course, the allegations. This is the story here. She's went on to bigger, said she also decided to talk because some of what happened to her was consistent with allegations against John Conyers. To babysit in, that was 2003, that would be 14 years ago. First reported similar complaints from other workers in Conyers' office. I didn't know he had any kids that young, but evidently, she said he had some kids and a lot of girlfriends going on. She was not one of his girlfriends, and looking there, I can see why. But anyway, we won't go into that one. Not all his colleagues are so quick to call Conyers to step aside. However, speaking in New York, Representative Clyburn, he's from South Carolina, who's a member with Conyers of the Congressional Black Caucus, co-founded by him. You can't jump to conclusions with these types of things, adding that the allegations could be made up. Ain't no doubt about that, but John Conyers, with or without any type of due process, leaves, but he does leave with a little bit of a check because he's been there since the mid-'80s. His pension could be as much as $39,000 compared to his current salary of what? $174,000 a year, and including his package, his Social Security could be around $230,000 a year. But for rules limiting pensions to more than 80% of current pay. But remember, he's been there 53 years. So nonetheless, he could also give a spousal benefit to his wife, Monica. Could be somewhere between $125,000 a year. And of course, the Affordable Care Act, all members of Congress are on it, including Paulie Ryan and the rest of these characters. Old Man McConnell, and the federal government picks up 72% of the cost. So that it basically means they pay 28% of the cost. Not bad at all. They used to get free health coverage. It's turned to be a different situation. Let me just finish this up. John Conyers from the Washington Post, retired there, and endorsed his son. We already talked about that before. Abrupt departure marks an end of a career that spanned the Watergate hearings and the impeachment proceedings against Bill Clinton, the Afghanistan, Iraq wars, debate over the national health care system. He influenced debate on each of these issues. Remember, eventually he was the chair of the powerful Judiciary Committee there at one time when the Democrats came back into power. But he was warned at that time. Now, that was the time of G.W. Bush, that they were not going to be doing any impeachment. That was by, at that time, the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi of California. So he is out of there, and what's some guy, Blake Fenval of Texas, said he would reimburse taxpayers for $80,000 in public funds to settle a sexual harassment suit. It only cost John Conyers $27,000 there, and sort of repeating things. Anyway, a special election will be called, as we said before, in that district. And what else do we have here? That's basically all that we have. In other news, DJ Trump has decided that he will endorse the moving of the capital. This is a Zionist state, Israel, to Jerusalem, which is a city, particularly East Jerusalem, is claimed by all of the quote-unquote religions, being Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. So they will have, as they say, a grand old time in the Mideast there. No doubt will probably result in a war, big war period. Washington Post has a headline here that the defense, we talked about it last night, Alan Dershowitz is one of the sponsors of it, but the president cannot obstruct justice because of Article 2. Most legal people don't think much of it, period. Out there. So, women share new evidence of relationship with, well, that doesn't really matter, with Judge Moore. We'll give you the latest here. what is going on with Roy Moore. Basically, that race is a dead heap, period. Shutdown looming. Conservative Republicans try to push back next spending deadline. It's here now. Poor old Dustin Hoffman's in the hot seat on these allegations. Anyway, nonetheless, to avoid a government shutdown, hit a snag late Monday when a block of conservatives pressed the leadership to set new spending deadlines for just after the Santa Claus holiday, a bid to maintain the party's leverage in talks with Democrats over spending levels and other year-end concerns. Well, that party they're not going to go to. The Freedom Caucus ultimately helped Republicans approve the launch of this tax thing. Old Mark Meadows of North Carolina, who chairs that caucus, said the group would rather see the next spending deadline fall after the Santa Day, and asked the leaders to consider the 30th of December. Only there's no decision that will get there before Christmas Eve, he says. And so it will go. Excuse me. Later in a brief interview, McCarthy said he had no firm promise to change the date. I have no problems with the 22nd or 23rd. The conservative leaders just tried to move as a tactical decision, meaning to reduce the chances the Republicans have to accept an immigration deal with the Democrats, higher spending caps aside, vote to cut taxes. Freedom Caucus members switched their no votes to yes votes. So this thing is a very tenuous situation still going on here. They have another meeting, as it's supposed in this article, with DJ Trump. The talks will focus on raising federal spending levels by $180 billion to $200 billion over the next 2 years, according to aides that spoke when they weren't out there. The Children's Health Care Fund, CHIPS, cash-strapped community centers, the Democrats list including to combat opioid addiction, shore up certain pension plans, pay for infrastructure programs. Well, they got a big list here. There is a bipartisan path towards all of these items. The leadership of the Democratic Party says they even want to protect agreements, treat a new border security system, although there's not as low as they say crossing of the border, the lowest in years. No big deal going there. Period. In other news, so-called Radio Free Europe and the Voice of America have been named foreign agents by the Russian government. And that is basically all that we have in this roundup. We'll give the polling here just because we are here, and we'll go on. We'll go to Ms. Gaddis and Representative Conyers early here. Reuters, the embassy move to Jerusalem, that has been contemplated for a long time. Credit union sue to block Mulvaney from leading the Consumer Protection Bureau. A lot of lawsuits going on there. The prosecutor of Deutsche Bank denies Deutsche Bank got a subpoena on DJ Trump's accounts. They're looking after old DJ Trump. And at the Supreme Court today, tough questions on the so-called gay wedding cake from Justice Kennedy. We'll have more of that later. The Senate confirmed, what's her name? The pick for Homeland Security Secretary. The last name is Nielsen. I don't remember the first one. Period there. And that's basically Bitcoin is up to $11,850. Google has pulled YouTube from Amazon devices. They have a little bit of a war going on there. In other news, Prime Minister May faces pressure to soften the Brexit divorce after EU exits deal crumbles. So that has crumbled up, and we don't know where it is. Venezuela now has a cryptocurrency out there. Be interesting to see where that will go. And the Republican Party, their Senate committee, DJ Trump, have all endorsed Roy Moore. That's where that is going, in spite of this mania of harassment out here. And we have one other thing on that. We'll do the polling. There's a reaction from the head. She's the CEO of Facebook. We'll get to it in just a minute here. Nonetheless, this is a new poll out here. They're competing. This is Strategic Research. WBRC TV has Roy Moore ahead by 4 points. The Gaddis poll has Doug Jones ahead by 4 points. So this has kind of went back and forth, and Emerson had Moore up by 3 points. And I believe the CBS News poll the other day had Moore up by 6 points. So in other words, this is changing every day. We'll go to this while we got it. This is out of Birmingham, Alabama. This is Raycom operation here with a week left. This is of 3,200 likely Alabama voters find the election were held today. Moore would receive 50%. To Jones is 43%. That's 7% there. Yes, the 4% still remain undecided. The margin of error of the poll is 2 percentage points. Very low margin of error there. That to show a statistical tie with Moore and Jones. The 21st of November, 12 days of controversy there, and big letters here. 50% for Judge Moore. 43% for Jones, 4% undecided, 3% are writing in. That really writing in. It doesn't matter. Along party lines for every 3 or 4 respondents, 75% who identify as typical Republicans said they would vote for Roy Moore. 12% of Republican voters say they would vote for Doug Jones, and 87% of Democrats said they would vote for Jones also. He has to do better than that. According to John Gary, he said more supporters seems to have stabilized. A lot of momentum coming in on Moore's side. Same thing Moore said. We think they're starting to see a change in the vote from a few weeks ago when Moore was really losing Republicans across the board. The winner of the election will complete the term of Beauregard Sessions, who left the Senate to be. His term ends in 2020, so they'll be around for a while. As we said before, the poll, 3,200 people, 59% identified themselves as a typical voting Republican, 33 identified as typical voting Democrats. The margin of error plus 2 points, so very low margin of error in this particular poll. And one other little item we want to get up before we leave here, and this is from, what's her name here? Sandberg, but I'm going to get her first name right. Sandberg warns of a backlash. Sherry Sandberg, she is the CEO of Facebook. She was making an address at the American Enterprise Institute in Washington on Sunday. Anyway, she warned of potential backlash against women and urged companies to put in place clear policies on how allegations of sexual harassment are handled. In a Facebook post, the CEO of Facebook wrote that the organization's under pressure to beef up policies for handling allegations of sexual misconduct may be tempted to limit their exposure by limiting opportunities for women. I've already heard rumblings of a backlash. This is why you shouldn't hire women. Sanders wrote, referring to the rising course. Who the hell is Sanders? Of men alleging, of course, of women and some men alleging sexual misconduct in the workplace. That movement, following some high-profile sexual misconduct scandals of powerful men, is empowering victims to speak up, but Sandberg said it isn't enough. Too many workplaces lack clear policies about how to handle accusations of sexual harassment. She wrote she recommends that each workplace start with a clear principle, put in place policies to support them. That includes creating training sessions on the proper workplace behavior, taking all claims seriously, and establishing an investigative process and taking swift and decisive action against wrongdoers. Sandberg also says that she has experienced sexual harassment while doing her job, although never from someone she worked for. Noting that, however, that in each instance the harasser had more power than she did. It is not coincidental, she wrote. It is why they felt free to cross the line. Well, no doubt about it, a little bit of power, people take it, and they do very, very nasty things. This is out of the Houston Chronicle from the Associated Press on Monday the 4th. This will end our broadcast here. John Conyers leaves the ship of state is the title, and on to the interview that he gave to Ms. Gaddis at the radio station there in Detroit. Good day.
Reed, and of course he is no stranger to Metro Detroiters. He has been the attorney of record for public officials and high profile individuals on a national level, including former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. He has represented Ms. Aretha Franklin, R. Kelly, and today he talks with us as the attorney of record for Congressman John Conyers. He has a breaking announcement that will be shared during this interview. I want to share with you that Attorney Reed is at an undisclosed hospital with Congressman John Conyers. Good morning, Attorney Reed. I'm wonderful, and like most people across this country, and specifically here in the city of Detroit, we are awaiting this announcement. What's going on with Congressman John Conyers?
We're pleased to be here with you. It is important that the public know that the congressman felt that it was necessary to address the individuals that elected him, the individuals that have entrusted him with their issues for the last 50 plus years. He felt it was important that he address his constituents on your show, separate and apart from those in Washington. So, without further ado, Mildred, with me is the Dean of the House, Congressman John Conyers.
Top of the morning, Mildred Gaddis.
Good morning, Congressman. How are you? I want to know how you're doing health-wise, and how's the family?
Well, thank you very much for asking. I first wanted to acknowledge the incredible support that this excellent attorney Arnold Reed has given me in the process of moving through these issues that confront us. You should know, and I'm glad you asked, that health-wise, my family's doing well. I'm doing great. And I think that it has not impacted negatively on their health. They're doing well, that support me entirely. And I'm so proud of them and love them all very much.
Congressman, the question is, how has these allegations, how have they impacted you and your family and your legacy?
Well, we take these in stride. Look, this goes with the issue of politics, the game of politics, which we're in. We take what happens, we deal with it, we pass on and move on forward as we keep going, trying to make as much as we can of this tremendous opportunity that's been given me for so long. And I'm very, very pleased to let you know that my family is doing very well. My wife and my 2 boys are doing great. Even my brother Nathan is in here pitching in a very important way. And so our family and health are excellent.
Congressman, no one can doubt, even your critics, that your legacy is a phenomenal one. You have picked your issues, you committed yourselves to them, and you've seen them through. I think perhaps the one, and you can share with us, that probably when you look back over your life and your term in Washington, was the inability to get the total House, or the majority of the House, to respect and honor your reparations push. Do you think that these allegations at all will impact that legacy?
Oh, absolutely not. My legacy can't be compromised or diminished in any way by what we're going through now. This too shall pass. And I want you to know that my legacy will continue through my children. I have a great family here, and especially in my oldest boy, John Conyers III, who incidentally I endorsed to replace me in my seat in Congress. And so we're all working together to make this country a better one, to make equality and justice more available for any. And of course, with Dr. Martin Luther King, that's the issue that brought us in this thing together. And we've been steadily moving forward, and we're going to continue to do so.
For those listening, I want you all to make sure you heard that news bomb the congressman just dropped, and that is that he's endorsing his son, John Conyers III, to replace him. Congressman Conyers, Nancy Pelosi and some other Democrats have abandoned you as you've gone through this challenge. Some people are saying it's time for Congress to open the books and share the names of all of the Congress people who are responsible for $7 million in these kinds of sexual harassment lawsuits to be paid out. Do you think those books should be open?
I think there should be a complete disclosure and revealing to all of the citizens of the country of what your federal legislators are doing or not doing, and any costs that may have been incurred as a result of that. So my answer to that is a strong, unequivocal yes.
Congressman Conyers, you're a lawyer. I mean, the judiciary has always been your thing, the law, the law, the law, and you've used the law to support some of these issues and causes that you have presented there in the House. Does the fact that you did not receive due process in this issue concern you? Does it bother you at all?
No, ma'am. I've been through this with other people for many years. This is why I came to the House Judiciary Committee when I was first elected. I asked immediately to be assigned a seat on that very important committee, which examines constitutional issues and due process in particular. And so this doesn't come as a shock to me. I've been working in this area for years and years, longer than anybody else, as a matter of fact. And I am very proud of the fact that I am the Dean of the Congress and that I will continue to. Oh, yes, I'm in the process of putting my retirement plans together, and I will have more about that very soon.
Congressman, okay, and I want to get some clarity here, and I think I do have it, but for the record, for those who may not have understood or heard what you said, is that you're very confident in your legacy. You are today, at this time, at this moment, in this period, preparing for your retirement, a date in which you are not prepared to announce at this moment.
Yes, I thank you for helping me get this into focus. I am retiring today, and I want everyone to know how much I appreciate the support, the incredible, undiminished support I've received across the years from my supporters, not only in my district, but across the country as well.
So people, you have it here on the Mildred Gaddis Show. You heard it here. Congressman Conyers announces his retirement as of today. He has also said during this interview he is supporting his son, John Conyers III, to replace him. Congressman, as you exit this interview, do you still maintain that the allegations that have been leveled against you are false?
Whatever they are not accurate or they're not true, and I think that they are something that I can't explain where they came from.
Congressman, first of all, let me just say that we appreciate you and certainly appreciate you for choosing to share and make this announcement on the Mildred Gaddis Show. This is historical. There are a lot of people who wanted to hear, wanted to know, and thank you for sharing, and we wish you nothing but the very best.
I thank you, Mildred, and I'm so proud to do this with you, and I hope to have continued discussions in the future.
Absolutely. You take care. We'll be talking with you.
Thank you very much as well, Mildred, and we appreciate you and all the work that you do and will continue to do in the community.
Thank you so much, Attorney Arnold Reed.
Take care. Keep the faith.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here on the Mildred Gaddis Show. Congressman John Conyers announcing his retirement effective today. He also has said that he's endorsing his son, John Conyers III, to replace him. Now, let me just tell you what makes this a bit interesting. Ian Conyers, who is a state senator, has, I understand, told the New York Post this morning, the New York Times, that he plans to seek this seat. So obviously that decision is not endorsed by the congressman or some members of the Conyers family. So this should prove pretty interesting within itself. John Conyers retiring effective today, and he's endorsing his son to replace him. You're listening to The Mildred Gaddis Show.